It's February 19th, 2017, and there are only a handful of people currently playing LEGO The Hobbit, and even less are speedrunning. In fact, it wasn't even a speedrunner who was about to discover something that would domino effect itself into shaving off over an hour of time within the game's any percent category, letting the game be one of only 3 in the Traveler's Tale series that can be beaten in under 10 minutes. YouTube user LegoMite uploaded a video on this same day showcasing a glitch they had found that launched their character up so high into the air that they penetrated the game's skybox and fell back down out of bounds. Nowadays, launching is nothing new to LEGO games. There's tons of different ways to pull it off across nearly every game in the series. There's boxer launches in LEGO Indiana Jones 1, V-Sync launches in The Force Awakens, you name it. Though this was the first time that anybody had seen anything like it, and it didn't require a higher-end PC or specific terrain to accomplish. It was done by using a core, unique gimmick found only in LEGO The Hobbit, the buddy system. Walking up to a partnered player and pressing the B button will allow you to buddy up with them, which is used in many places throughout the game to complete required puzzles. This is mostly unimportant, as they're all skipped throughout the any percent run regardless. What is important is how this system gets abused. The buddy system is very fragile, and by doing something as simple as, say, buddying up between a railing or a fence, you can make the game send you straight up into the air. You could also use the larger hitbox it gives your characters to horizontally launch for faster movement. A point in case, it was not hard to break it. Throughout the next week, runners and glitch hunters of LEGO The Hobbit would find more arbitrary uses for the launch. SM Kirky and Alchemass, 2 long-standing community members, would send videos of themselves landing on top of floating terrain in the game's hub, as well as in unloaded areas of the map. While Kirky turned their focus to improvements inside the levels, LegoMite showed how the glitch could be used to faster traverse the game's overworld. Unfortunately, the current runners were under the assumption that this was about as far as the launching could take them. Remember, back in 2017, there was no LEGO Batman 3 sequence break, there was no LEGO The Incredibles end-level triggers, there was no precedence for how tech like this could be used. Funnily enough, about half the discussion inside the LEGO The Hobbit speedrun channel was about the current developments in LEGO Indiana Jones, meaning it's safe to say that the community's attention was focused elsewhere. So let's take a step back for a moment. Much like every other LEGO game, The Hobbit is split into levels, of which there are 16. When you complete a level, you gain access to either a new character, ability, or map location that lets you move further into the game's main story. This is done obviously by traversal of the overworld. Unfortunately, when runners started to find glitches like these, they were unable to enter into the loading zones for levels they hadn't unlocked yet. You couldn't go from level 1 to level 5, even if you were out of bounds, because the normal load zone for the level wasn't present yet. This is why throughout all of 2017 and all of 2018, SM Kirky and Harisme would continue to find improvements inside of levels instead. There were, of course, tons of buddy launches to go out of bounds, a few cutscene skips, the standard improvements. This would allow Kirky to set quite a few world records, dropping the time down by nearly 10-minute intervals each run. Kirky then took a long break from speedrunning, which forced LEGO The Hobbit back into the shadows. After a completely inactive 2019, Captain Paxo finally beat Kirky's world record by a full minute, nearly 3 years after it happened. Put that in perspective, this game hadn't been seriously ran in over 3 years, and there was finally a new world record. Though again, Hobbit was cursed into obscurity, with the only 2 active runners now being Paxo and a runner named Zoe, who got their own world record just over a month after Paxo. Remember, we're all the way in December of 2020, and the game's any percent run is still over 3 hours long. As the months went by, a couple of new records would be set, and it was looking like this might be yet another unremarkable year for the game. Though there were still 3 days left in the year, which is more than enough time for the wheels of change to spin. It's weird to see a first message from somebody who is still so active in the community. While Hamster may be more known for the Batman series of games, he started here, in The Hobbit, submitting phone recordings of his TV. Within a week of joining the Discord, Hamster took the co-op world record from Zoe, found consistent buddy launches for the console version of the game, and plenty of skips. There was also an absurd amount of minor time save found by Los, which almost implied that Hobbit was finally getting the attention it deserved. The community even discovered VSync launching, which works similar to buddy launching, but it's done instead by toggling your VSync to off when you're rolling up a slope or hill. In total, Hamster and Los had found around 15 minutes of potential time save with their discoveries, and things were just beginning to kick into gear. There was only one problem. Hamster was now the only main runner of the game, but he didn't have the proper hardware to get all of the massive launches that seemed to be at the core of all major time save. You need an absurd amount of FPS to make them work, and that just wasn't feasible with his current setup. Despite this, he would still search for any percent time saves. In June of 2021, an hour would be shaved off of the any percent time due to the discovery of the No Cut 5 cheat code, which allowed cutscenes within the game to be skipped on your first watch. This pushed the any percent record down to sub 2, with a 158.14 on July 14th of 2021. Only a few mere hours after this, the game would change forever. We need to talk about loading triggers. They should be pretty easy to understand. You walk into a load zone, commonly referred to as a door, and it brings you to a designated spot within the game. Most load triggers that lead to levels from within the hub are only activated at certain points in the game. As stated earlier, level 4's standard trigger won't be activated until level 3 has been beaten. This begs the question though, of what if there was more than just one trigger per level? What if, I don't know, a few developers over at TT Games had some debug triggers left over from testing certain things during development, and these leftover triggers just so happened to bring you near the end of the game? I mean, even if this was a possibility, they would be within places the player couldn't reach, like out of bounds or super high above the map, to avoid a player hitting them by accident on their playthrough. Why bother speculating this? Because this is a real thing within the game, leftover debug doors that are normally inaccessible. LavaFang found 2 leftover debug doors that both bring you into level 13, looking for proof. If you were able to hit these during an any percent playthrough, which Captain Paxo proved was possible shortly after, it would allow you to beat level 13 early. The best part? The game doesn't check to see if levels 2 through 12 are beaten before unlocking the door to level 14. Meaning that you could go from 13 to 14 to 15 all the way to 16, the final level. This cut another hour of time from the run, and proved that LEGO The Hobbit was possible to beat in under 1 hour. This was no easy task though, as there's no visual for where this door is, and you have to hit it from a very specific angle. Though you could miss the door hundreds of times and still save time over completing the previous 11 levels, with level 1 still being a requirement. Paxo wasn't satisfied with the game just being under 1 hour, as that same exact night he got a 44:35, the game's first sub 45-minute time and sub-hour time mere hours after the door's discovery. Now I know what you're thinking, why are we only going to level 13? Why not skip all the way to 16? Well, they really hid level 16's debug trigger. Instead of it being up in the air with launches guiding the way, it's down below the map. In the last 3 years of discoveries, the community had found so much, but nothing that would let them clip through the floor. Many runners thought this trigger to be impossible, and they moved on to finding triggers to level 14 and 15. Hamster, of course, got another record within this time frame, bringing the record down to a 33:21, right on the edge of sub 30. This run uses a lot of weird new tech, like this kind of slow buddy hover thing, launching by using a horse as a median, and a lot more. This was then pushed even further by Los, who set a 32 right after. This is what The Hobbit deserved. It wasn't shoved back into obscurity for the 3rd or 4th time, it was being brought out more and more into the spotlight, being the first of its kind to have near full game skips. Hamster got a 31:20, Paxo got a 30:09, and sub 30 was on the horizon. Would it take the right runner to beat this time? Or maybe just the right skip? 4 days after the insanity went down, Los uploaded the final holy grail of Hobbit discoveries. An RTA viable way to hit the out-of-bounds door for level 16, the final level. He begins by using a VSync launch to get behind the collision of the castle door, then walks all the way into the far right corner of the mountain's collision. After pulling out a horse, yes, a horse, he mounts it and turns so Gandalf is inside the mountain. Then, after dismounting, he's stuck between inbounds and out of bounds, which once again is fixed by the deploying of yet another rideable animal, the warg. This drops him out of bounds, allowing him to pause buffer to a very specific spot in the void, hitting the trigger and entering the level. Let's not get ahead of ourselves though, because we can't just go from 1 to 16 still. We need access to the mounts to clip through the mountain, which aren't available at the beginning of the game. Luckily for us, the very first trigger found in the Hobbit's history, level 13s, changes us from Frodo to Gandalf, who is then able to, at this point in the story, summon mounts. It's very poetic that even after all this time, the level that started it all is still able to be useful. We don't even need to play through 13 anymore, as just saving and exiting to the hub keeps us as Gandalf. From there, it's just some Skyrim horse physics and VSLs to enter the final room of level 16 and call our time. Do you want to know how much time this clip saved? Without the No-Cut 5 cheat code, Rain was able to get a time of 25:24, sub 30 with 10 or so minutes lost to cutscenes. Without cutscenes, Hamster got a 16:19. 16:19. Remember when this game was 3 hours and 30 minutes long? Because of how short the run was becoming, every single second became exponentially more valuable to save, so smaller things began to become optimized as well, such as Jack Juggler discovering a way faster way to hit the door to level 13 looking for proof, that saved over 2.5 minutes. Instead of buddy hovering as we saw in Hamster's run before, Jack and Los found a way to simply jump into level 13's room 3 door from the mountainside. This, accompanied by the revelation that better walking lines could be taken out of bounds instead of inbounds, helped incentivize the remaining runners even more. It was still July of 2021, and Hamster wasn't fully satisfied with his run. He kept improving, breaking barrier after barrier as the years, the days, the months went by. 1555, 1548, 1415, 1407, 1302, 1233, 1153, a brief record steal by Jack that was taken back the same day, 1041, 1017, 1011, 1008, and then 10 flat. Twice.
Oh my gosh, I don't know, dude. I don't think that was it. No. I don't think that was it. Oh my gosh. Oh.
The latter of which being just 3 frames off from his ultimate goal, the last barrier Hamster wanted to break, pushing the game below a sub 10. The limit long thought impossible. If anyone was going to do it, it had to be him. 2 days shy of 2 years later, Hamster booted up his stream and did the unthinkable.
This is it. Yes! 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 Oh my gosh. And we got this up 10. Oh, my heart is pounding. Oh. Let's go, I finally did it. Wow.
While Hamster wasn't the only contributor to The Hobbit's 6-year sub-10 journey, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone more deserving of the accomplishment. A grueling category to say the least, which makes finally conquering it all the more relieving. Maybe this record will eventually get taken, but for a run as flawless as this, it might take some time, some people, and probably a few new skips. Until that time comes, we can rest easy knowing that this game was pushed far beyond what it was ever supposed to be.